Okay, so now we are doing this thing called the Dybvig model. So basically, this is a model. This is not an unemployment model. This thing shows the features of banks. So it's like basically like banks and like monies like that. And one thing that explains, or it's supposed to explain. Oh, actually, it does. Yeah, I get it. I get it now. It explains why bank runs happen. So a bank run or run of the bank occurs when many clients. Okay, so basically like when many people think that a bank is gonna like shut down, like crash, whatever, so they all go and like take all their money out of the bank. So then like the bank has like literally $0, and it's like, oh my God, what the hell happened to us? Ah, and like that's sort of like a bad thing, so we don't want that to happen. So in this model, there are three periods: 0, 1, and 2. 0 is like the present. 1 and 2 are like two like sort of versions, not versions, but like two like 1 and 2 are both the future. One is like the early future, and then the 2 is like the far future. So first of all, they are end consumers, just like in the other model. And each person is given 1 unit of a good in period 0. So each person is given like 1 unit, like let's say they're all given like $1. What they could do is, okay, okay, so they're given this 1 unit and they could invest it in like some kind of production or some investment or whatever. And they can use it all the way, like they can invest it all the way until period 2. And they would get back 1 plus R units. Okay, like if they, I know it says HR, but it's supposed to say 1 plus R. And they can get back 1 plus R units at the end of period 2. Or if they decide to actually like take it out, like take out the investment earlier, like because they need like the actual money or whatever. Like let's say they're given like $1, okay, and they've invested the dollar into some kind of investment, and like like the person's like, okay, cool, I'll just leave it all the way until period 2, and I'll take it out there when I have like 1 plus R units. But then there's this other guy who has like also $1, but then at period 1 he's like, oh crap, like I need money for something, like I need dollar monies for something. So he has to take it out of the like the thingy, like the whole investment, and he gets back 1 unit. So like not 1 plus R, but 1 unit. And you might be like, okay, but like from 0 to 1, like shouldn't that have accumulated something? Like how could it still be 1 unit and 1 unit? Well, period 1 is kind of different. I guess you're sort of supposed to like maybe sort of imagine it as if 0 and 1 are like really close by together ish. Like 2 is sort of like the actual official future kind of thing. Whereas period 1 is sort of just like the period that tells you whether or not you need to consume it right now. So like whether you need like the money right now, or you can like leave it in like your bank, whatever, etc. Okay, blah blah blah. That's like a basic gist of this thingy. Blah blah blah. All right, okay, and at this period over here, in the present, this person doesn't know whether they're gonna have to use it up like in period 1, or if they can leave it until period 2. So they're like, like might as well just put it in like the thing just in case. Like it comes to the point that I I don't need to take it out in period 1, so like I could get that extra money. But like this at period 0, the person doesn't know whether they're gonna need the money soon or not. Okay, like whether they need to like consume it earlier or not. Cool. All right. Okay. So the thing is, there are end consumers, right? Like there are like so many consumers, and it's not like all consumers are gonna like consume it early, or all consumers are gonna consume it late, right? Early versus late. So there's like a probability thingy where the fraction t is all early consumers, and there's fraction t minus 1 of late consumers. Like late consumers are over here, early consumers are over here. So basically, in period 1, and this is specifically in period 1 because I mean, like, I guess it could also be in period 2. Could it be in period 2 too? Um, yeah, I guess technically this could also work in period 2 too. It's just that at period 0, period 1 is like the first period they actually find out, because at period 0, like, we have literally no idea who's gonna be early and who's gonna be late. So at period 1, we're gonna have t of early consumers and t minus 1. Wait, hold up. What? Oh crap, I think it's supposed to be 1 minus t. Yeah, okay, that's supposed to be 1 minus t. 1 minus t, 1 minus t, like consumers. What? I literally copied this. Okay, whatever. It is what it is. So there's that. So now we're just gonna have like a utility function where the utility that people get is from consumption. So basically, like, as you consume more, your utility goes up because you're like, yay, we like utility. But then there's also like diminishing marginal utility and all that. So it's like this kind of thingy. And the slope of this line is a marginal utility of consumption. So when I was Googling this, I found like this little thing over here, this function that was like utility of some consumption equals 1 minus 1 over the consumption value. I don't really know if this is for I don't know if this was specifically for that example that they gave, or this is like a general thing. I don't think it's a general thing, right? Yeah, I don't think it's a general thing. Okay, never mind then, forget this. But just maybe remember it in case somebody asks you what the utility function is. I don't know. But anyway, so we get this. So we have like an expected utility. So what is the expected utility that a consumer will get? Like a random consumer will get is they get the utility from consumption in period 1 with a probability of t, and they have a utility from consumption 2 with a probability of 1 minus t. It is 1 minus t. I messed it up here. But anyway, so they would get C1. Oh, damn it. They would get C1 if they consume early, and they get C2 if they consume late. Okay, so it's just like a total expected utility. I guess this is like expected utility, expected utility for like a person that doesn't really know which one they're gonna be, right? So this is sort of like at like P0, everybody's like, this is the expected utility that you're gonna get like from your life, whatever, because like obviously once you actually get to P1 and you know which one you are, like you're just gonna be like, it's just gonna be UC1 or it's gonna be UC2. Like you don't have to worry about the whole probability since you already know who you are. So another thing another graph we're going to be looking at is in the indifference curve graph. So what we're going to do is we are going to say that, oh my god, there's so much stuff here. Like I literally don't even know what this is. Okay, basically, this indifference curves tells you how much you would give up of one for the other. So like how much you value one for the other. So it's like, how much do I value my late consumption for my early consumption? So, for my early consumption. So, first we have like this line going across that's like C1 equals C2, which means that I would consume like I would get the same amount in both periods. And then we have 3 indifference curves, which are just like different indifference curves. But the slope of the indifference curve, okay, so the slope of an indifference curve is a marginal rate of substitution of the two goods. So the marginal rate of substitution of the two goods is basically the marginal utility of good X over the marginal utility of good Y. Okay? But in this case, since we have like the whole probability stuff, we have to multiply those marginal utilities by like the probability T and probability 1 minus T. Cool. Now, at this point C1 equals C2. If you're right over here, at this point, since these two are equal, MUC1 and MUC2 will both be equal, which means that the marginal rate of substitution, if you're on this curve, so if I'm either over here or over here, is going to be T over 1 minus T. Probably negative. Actually, no, never mind. It doesn't have to worry about the negative sign. But yeah, it's T over 1 minus T. So that is that. So one thing, okay, so this is if the consumer invests money themselves, like they invest in some like product that they know or whatever. Okay, so they can either get $1 in P1 or 1 plus R dollars in P2. So you have 2 options there. Now let's look at this little graph thingy, okay? So in period 0, I invest, in period 0, I invest $1. in period 1, all the early consumers decided to consume early, so they would get C1 equals $1. And in period 2, all the late consumers consume less. Late? Is that what the hell is supposed to be? Whatever. Anyway, they get 1 plus R. That's how much money they get. Okay? So now the expected utility is T, so the probability of being an early consumer times the utility of getting $1, plus the probability of being a late consumer times the utility of 1 plus R. So like how much, the C2 value, whatever. Now this is something, this is like your expected utility from like this option. But thing is, there is a bank that has a better contract for you. And so we'll go over the reason for why it's a better contract later. But yeah, we'll go over, like, that's gonna be like the very end, because I honestly did not understand this. Because I kept thinking it was like 1%. People, it's more of like so right now you have the option, like right now, if you invest this thing, you either take it out in period 1 and get $1, or you take it out in period 2 and get 1 plus R dollars. But one issue might be like 1 plus R like is so much higher than 1, and there's like so much differences in both these numbers, and like I don't know if that's really an issue. But one thing is that I don't think time value of money really like applies here, because then like the other better option, it's like a bit weirder, but like we'll go over that. But anyway, the bank has a better contract, and this is what the bank's contract is. So now we're gonna go over the Dybvig Bank. So first, the bank is going to basically take a whole bunch of $1 from like each person. So like the N people will give $1 to the bank. So the bank has like so much money. Now in period 1, so now people can either withdraw in period 1 and get C1 back, or they can withdraw in period 2 and get C2 units back. Right now we don't really know what C1 and C2 are, so we're just gonna like leave it at C2 and C1 and C2. So now some like condition sort of for this bank is that there's free entry. Free entry, so it's like a perfect competition, and so like the market has 0 profits, and there is only one bank, but this one bank sort of acts as a perfect competition, which means that they get like a profit of 0. And why is this? Because if they try to get a profit of 0, then another bank could start up their own bank and offer like a better deal, and then this bank would lose all their customers because everybody else would go to the other bank, right? So the other bank would take over. We don't really want that. So this person sort of has to act as a perfect competitor and get a profit of 0. So right now what we have is okay, great. Okay, we'll worry about that later. So first, in period 1, there are N dollars or like N units invested. And the marker isn't working, that's great. But there are N units invested by like each N person that invests like $1 or whatever. Now in period 1, X percentage of, oh my god, it's frozen. Damn it. I can't even like, oh. Okay, there we go. Oh crap. In period 1, X percentage of investments, so maybe like 25% of investments are sort of interrupted, like, because the early consumers, we're gonna like let it be EC, they all decided to take their money out of the bank, and they each get C1 back, okay? Now, if only the early consumers withdraw, then we have like this little condition here. And the condition is that then the number of people who take, the total number of people times the probability that they are the early consumers, which means that the early consumers times the early consumers payment equals the number of projects that are stopped times the number of people. Now this might be really kind of like odd to look at, like you might be like, what the hell even is this? But you just sort of have to match up each of the letters, where you can get like N to N, like the N to N on this side, and then we get T 2x, because t is basically like the percentage of early consumers, and x is basically like the percentage of investments that are stopped. And if only early consumers are the ones that withdraw, so if only early consumers are the ones that stop the projects, then t has to equal x, right? And then we have that C1, there's no really number for C1, but we're just gonna like sort of imagine that it's a 1. And because like C1 is sort of 1, right? From like our before thingy. I don't know if that makes sense. Sort of slightly makes sense. Okay. In period 2, and it's frozen again. That is great. And it's all moving. Wow, I love this. So beautiful. In period 2, oh, okay, there we go. That's nice. Okay, in period 2, 1 minus x projects, like, they all finished. Like, they're not interrupted because, like, they all, like, ended. Because I guess they were only, like, 2-year projects or whatever. So they all finished by the end. And all the late consumers, now, they decide to withdraw and they get their C2 dollars. Now, at this point, only late consumers withdraw. So we have this condition that is met. And again, there's, like, basically n matches up with n. The number of consumers matches up with the number of projects that are stopped, and the C2 matches up with 1 plus R, because basically we're saying that C2 equals 1 plus R. We're not like supposed to say that, I think, because like C2 isn't really, oh wait, no, wait. I don't know actually. Okay, well, you know what, we'll come back to that, hopefully. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, another thing is, okay, so here I said something about how if only EC withdraw and if only LC withdraw. And we had to like mention that because there could be an option where the early consumers decide to consume in period 2 and the late consumers decide to consume in period 1. However, we're gonna like sort of prove here in this situation that there is no reason. So first of all, there is no reason that early consumers would collect in period 2. An early consumer means that they sort of have to consume in period 1. Like they literally have to consume right now. Like maybe they need the money for like surgery or whatever. So they sort of have to take it out in P1, so they have no reason to collect in P2. But one thing that could happen is that the late consumers could collect, like they could like decide to withdraw their money in period 1 and just like store it in like their like pocket or whatever, and then they can like use it in P2. Like just like money for emergency. It's just like an option that they could do. But we'll be showing later on that something about how it's like better for them to not do that and stuff like that. I don't know. And my screen is frozen again. It's so, I love this. I literally love it so much. Okay, so now we're gonna go over, oh my god, there's so long this time. So now we're gonna go over the bank's lifetime budget constraint. So first of all, we are gonna draw a C1, C2 graph. Okay, so it's just like a C1, C2 graph. And the budget constraint is always like a line like this. Oh my god, I have no charge. A budget constraint is always like a downward sloping graph like that. So we're going to draw that. And first, we are going to look at the bottom x-intercept. So this bottom x-intercept basically means if C2 equals 0. So if basically I decide to not give anything to the late consumers and I only give out C1 to all our early consumers, how much money will each person get? Well, the answer, each person, wait, each person? What? How is it 1 over t? Shouldn't it be like n over t? Which means it's not 1 plus r. What is 1 divided by t? C1, it's the dollars. C1 equals 1 over t. What? Hold on. C1 equals 1 over t. This is the amount of dollars that the person gets. T is something like 0.25, right? So if I do 1 over 0.25, I get like 4, let's say. And right now I'm like, so C1 equals 4. So basically, okay, I think it's fine. Right. Yeah, I think I was like mixing up with stuff or something. T over, okay, right, because T isn't the number of people, it's like the ratio of like, it's like the percentage of people that are, you know, like right now, what is it, early consumers? So basically, we don't really, so basically if I give all my money to C1 people, so like to the T people, I would give 1 over T per person, I think. Right, because T is like, it's not a number of people, it is like a fraction, and 1 is a fraction, so it's fraction divided by fraction, and I think that's fine. Okay, cool. Now, for this y-intercept, on the other hand, if I decide to give all the money to like all the C2 people, well, the amount of dollars that the person gets is 1 plus r, and the fraction of people left over are 1 minus t, so it's 1 plus r divided by 1 minus t. Basically just like the dollars divided by people. That's like how much money they get. And then there's like a line and the slope. This is the slope. Negative t times 1 plus r over 1 minus t. And we are going to go over to y. This is the slope. So, first of all, the slope of the graph is C2 over C1. You know, it's like change in Y over change in X. And my marker isn't working again. Work. So it's change in Y over change in X. I'm literally like not even gonna lift my thing up because if I take it off, then it's gonna stop working. So it's change in Y over change in X. And let's see. So it's like basically like change in C2 over C1, but I'm just gonna like leave it as C2 and C1. Basically, C2 is the total money that the late consumers get divided by the number of late consumers there are. Okay, and C1 is the total number of, C1 equals the dollar, like the amount of money that the early consumers get divided by the number of early consumers there are, right? Like the sort of just like I have like $500 divided by 6 people, and that is how much each person gets, like C2. So when we rearrange this, we get it to LC over here, and then early consumer over dollars early consumer here. It's like a weird thing. My symbols are really weird, but it's somewhat understandable. So what we're gonna do is look at this thing over here, and we are gonna break this up into 2 parts like this. Okay? Well, technically I broke it up wrong in the first time, so we're gonna break it up like this. So negative t, so t is, what is t again? So wait, t looks like the number of early consumers. 1 minus t is the number of late consumers. 1 plus r is like the dollars given to late consumers, and 1 is the dollars given to early consumers. So this thing over here is basically the same thing as this thing over here. It's just like, like if you just switch these 2 things around, it's like the same. But it's like rearranging. Same thing. But anyway, that is sort of the gist for where the slope comes from. It's just like C2 divided by C1. What the hell is C2 and what the hell does C1 mean? And then sort of rearrange it and then substitute like the proper letters for like the dollar and the numbers, and then just rearrange to like get this thing. But yeah, okay. So first of all, the bank's goal is going to be to maximize the consumer utility subject to the budget constraint. So this is sort of like the whole like budget constraint and utility stuff. So there are 2 properties to this graph. Okay, so first of all, in this graph over here, point A is going to be the point at which the bank like gives out its things. Like point A is going to be like the bank's bank's offer, like the bank's like equilibrium basically. So there's 2 properties to the graph. First property is that point A is northwest of point B. So basically at point B is what would happen if the bank gave the same amount to both P1, like in both period 1 and period 2. they give the same amount of dollars. So the thing is, in this case over here, the slopes of the graphs are different. Oh my god, slopes of the graph are different. Like over here on the slope of indifference curve is less than the slope of the budget constraint. And as a result, this is not an equilibrium, okay? Because at the optimum level, the MRS, the marginal rate of substitution, which is the slope of the indifference curve, has to equal the slope of the budget constraint. Cool. So now we're gonna look at two like little four formulas kind of, I guess. So slope of the budget constraint is 1 plus r over 1 minus t divided times t, which is the thing that we sort of like derived-ish like just before this. And the slope of the indifference curve is negative t over 1 minus t. Oh, right, okay. This is at this point, the slope of IC at point B. At point B. Because remember, the actual slope of the thingy equals t over 1 minus t times MUC1 all over MUC2. Not like all over, but like this. But I think since we said that C1 equals C2, so these two are the same, so just negative t over 1 minus t. So basically, what we have is that over here, the budget constraints slope is bigger, which is not allowed because they have like this extra 1 plus r thing here, and so it's not the optimum level, and we want them both to be equal, so we are going to basically move the point over. So basically, so B isn't a good option, and we're gonna go like a higher indifference curve, and we're gonna go to A, and at A basically C2 is greater than C1, which sort of takes in the fact that since they wait longer, they sort of like get more money and all that. Like, so C2 is greater than C1. Okay, and the next factor condition, the next feature of this graph, I don't know, I forgot what the word was, but point A is southeast of point D. So this is point A and this is point D. So point D is basically the original, like the original thing where like you either get 1 at period 1 or you get 1 plus r at period 2. So that this period, okay, so basically in this whole thing there are two options. Either I invest it myself, like I don't know how I would invest this myself, like in myself maybe, or like in like a friend's business maybe, where I would get like 1 in period 1 and 1 plus r in period 2, or I give it to the bank where the bank gives me this super cool deal with point A, where I get like these options over here, where I get like this much in period 1 and this much in period 2. And one thing that we see is that with this deal at A, our C1 is greater than 1, because like it's like over here, and our C, it's like over here, and our C2 is less than 1 plus r. So here's our C2, and here's our C1. And so this is, so it's like slightly closer to like the equilibrium-ish kind, I like not equilibrium, but like this like sort of like B point-ish than D is. And why this is a good thing, like, is because it's sort of smooth, so there's like less fluctuation than if I had invested myself. Like, you know how like we hate fluctuation, like we want income to be like this, not like this, whatever. So basically, in our original thingy, it was like we either get 1 or 1 plus r, and it's like, man, I have no idea which I'm gonna get. Like, what if I end up having to do some kind of surgery and I have to take it out in period 1? And it's like, that really sucks for me because like I would only get this $1. Whereas with this banks thingy, it's more like this. So I either get like maybe like, I don't know, like 1.2, I guess, compared to like 1.8. Okay, this is kind of like really dumb numbers. Whatever, I either get like 1.2 or 1.8. So what? But anyway, so there's like a lesser difference between these two. So like even if for some reason I had to take out the money in like period 1, I wouldn't like lose out on too much of like a loss. It's more like smooth. Okay, so that's why this bank deal is better than our original plan, our original like self plan, whatever. So in this situation, So basically there are like two like sort of like situations-ish or like possibilities of like how the world could turn out. So one is there's a good equilibrium. So in this case, all the early consumers they withdraw in period 1 and they get C1. The late consumers withdraw in period 2 and they get C2. And it's like perfect, yay. And in this case, there is no incentive for each of these people to deviate from the plan. Because first of all, the early consumers they need to consume in period 1, so they like take it all in period 1. So they can't really take it out in period 2. The late consumers they get like a benefit of where C2 is bigger than C1, so because of that, they do not deviate. Okay, cool. Oh, you know what? I kind of get why there was that point, like, the way to show, like, like, you know how we were, like, there are, like, these two, sort of, like, conditions, kind of, that PA has to be southeast of PD, is basically just to show two characteristics of the point A. First of all, to show that at point A, it's not at a point where C1 equals C2, and like the bank actually gives you a thing where C2 is greater than C1, first of all. And the second condition, and that was from the point B, like they're just showing you that they're showing you that C2 has to be bigger than C1, and in the second property, P has to be southeast of PD thingy. They're telling you that C2 is less than C2 is less than 1 plus R, and C1 is greater than 1. Like, it's just like, basically just two, like, these are like the main properties. This thing and the fact that, like, C2 is greater than C1 are the two, like, main properties that they're trying to, like, tell us with these two thingies. So, first of all, in this case over here, we're at a good equilibrium, and the late consumers get C2 greater than C1, so like they're like happy with their larger amount of money, so they don't deviate. But let's say that each late consumer thinks that all the other late consumers are going to withdraw in period 1 to get C1. Okay, like let's say that for some reason I think I'm a late consumer and I'm like, bro, all the other late consumers are gonna take all their money out on period 1 and they're all gonna get C1 and like C1 is bigger than 1. So it's like not bad, right? There's not like that much of a difference. So now the thing is, if everybody else takes C1, and since C1 is greater than 1, there will be no money left over for me, the last person in period 2. So it's sort of to show that we have n minus 1. So n is like the total number of people, like literally everybody else. Minus 1 means minus me. So like everybody else, all the late consumers and all the early consumers, all of them, like all the other people, they consume it and they all decide to get C1, right? And since C1 is bigger than 1, so I don't really know why it matters whether C1 is bigger than 1 or not. But anyway, for whatever reason, if C1 is greater than 1, this will be bigger than n. I feel like this is something that's like very basic and I'm not getting it. Hold on, what the hell? In this case over here, we have C1 is greater than n over n minus 1, right? So if C1 was something like 0.8, let's say, okay, no, let's say that n is 100, so n minus 1 is 99, so 100 over 99. 100 over 99 is obviously greater than 1, right? Right. Now, if C1 is greater than 1, n over, wait, what am I doing right now? C1, nope. Actually, I don't even know what I'm doing. What is this? I'm like slightly confused. I think 100 divided by 99. N over n minus 1. Wait, no. Okay, so n minus 1 times c. is all the money that is given off to everybody else, right? And I am saying that that is basically larger than, oh, it's larger than if each person had been, if everybody in the world had been given only $1. Okay? Okay, let's see this, let's see this. So if C1, and the thing isn't working again, work. Oh, you can do this, okay. So if C1 equals $1, like in our original plan, so n minus 1 times 1 compared to n is going to be like n minus 1, and this is obviously less, right? So it's like, hold on, I'm kind of, so n minus 1, so all the other people getting money out of the bank times the amount of money that they would each get, because C1 equals 1, compared to everybody else, compared to everybody getting all the money, well, obviously, n minus 1 is less than n, so there would be money left over for like the very last guy, like the one person that's left over from this whole exchange. Okay, because it's like n minus 1 times 1 is less than n times 1. Okay, but now if this C1 value wasn't actually 1, and if it was something like 2, and I'm only doing 2 because it's going to be like a lot more extreme, I guess, compared to n if each person had been given $1. Actually, no, yeah, basically if each person had been given $1, compare this to, right, because the thing is, the bank could either give everybody $1 in period 1, right? Or they can give everybody 1 plus R dollars in period 2, right? So basically, if we're taking out the money in period 1, we are assuming that, let's say, everybody goes to the bank and the bank's like, oh damn, okay, you guys all want your money? Great. We'll all give you $1. This is like that original thingy, right? Like there's so much money that they have. So you compare this guy over here would actually be bigger than this thing, which means that by the time that they give out all this, by the time that the bank gives out all this, all the C1 to everybody else other than me, by the time they're done with that, like they have nothing left over for me because that money is bigger than how much they would have had to give if they just gave $1 to each person. Okay, I feel like it's slightly more confusing, but I sort of get it slightly. So anyway, I, as a person thinking that is what the world is like, have two choices. One, I run to the bank early in period 1, or I just go to the bank as I normally would in period 2. So if I run to the bank early in period 1, I have two options. One, I am at the front of the line, or like somewhere in the front of the line, and I get C1, or I'm at the very back of the line, and since there's nobody after me and I'm the very last person, once all these front people are done with, I have $0, because remember the bank doesn't have any money left over for me. And the second option is to go there in period 2. And if I go in there in period 2, it's basically the same idea of like getting $0 because there's nobody left. So basically, obviously the person will like run early in period 1 because at least here they have at least a chance of getting C1. So basically in a bad equilibrium, so in this situation, if this is what the world was like, and if this is what everybody else thought everybody else was going to do, this is what would happen. Okay, everybody would run early in period 1, and there would be like a very last one guy at the very end who doesn't get any money. So that kind of sucks. So period 2 will run to bank, blah blah. So now one thing you might be like, oh, like how do you prevent this bad equilibrium? So the bad equilibrium is basically just like, it depends on what people think of the world, okay? So people might be like, oh, how do you avoid this like bad equilibrium? And one option is by having a deposit insurance. So basically this thing is a guarantee to each late consumers that they will get their C2 in period 2. And this way they won't really have to worry about going in period 1, and they'll all just go in period 2. But for some reason, this also means that it'll increase the incentive to invest in risky projects. I'm not really sure what that means. I think it means something like, okay, I literally don't know how this invest in risky projects has to do with this thing over here. I guess, okay, I guess it's more like, so this entire system sort of used a bank and its bank's deposit, like the bank's like checking account kind of basically, as an example. But another example of this could be like investments in projects, right? Like I invest in a project and I either take out my investment period 1 or I take out my investment period 2. And I get like some like, I don't know, dividends or whatever now, and I get some like dividends or like some extra interest later, right? Now, if there was a guarantee to me that I would get C2 if I wait until the very last stage, then I would be like, oh, really? Oh, damn, okay, then I'll invest all my money, and you guys can just like give me all your money at the very end, okay? Like give me all the money that I'm owed at the very end. Basically, like people will be more incentivized to invest in big projects. Okay, bye guys, very long.